everybody. My name is Kenneth. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm the curator and host of Poetry at the Point. Welcome to our October edition. This is our last reading of 2024, which is wild to even say out loud. But I'm really glad you're here. I'm really glad that Matthew and Myrtie agreed to be with us. I hope I don't get too navel-gazing about it, but I've really dedicated this calendar year's readings to focusing on community and how poetry creates community and how people who do poetry in community create community around them. So I'm really pumped that some folks who do this kind of thing have agreed to be with us at our thing. So the usual shout outs to the members of the St. Louis Poetry Center. You can become a member at the website, stlouispoetrycenter.org. We also have a QR code in the back, and I believe a sign-up sheet for our mailing list. Please check that out. We also have books for sale by Matthew, so make sure and convene with him at the end and buy a book. Support your local poets. Always grateful to the Missouri Arts Council and the Regional Arts Commission, whose support makes this and other programming possible. And as always, the focal point for this beautiful, chill, gorgeous wood space with fantastic acoustics. They always keep the light on for us. I want to mention a few events we have coming up that are all going to be really, really great. On the 24th, which is just a couple days from now, at Left Bank, we have Joanna Novak, Eileen Giselle, and Safa Khatib, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, are all going to share some new work at Left Bank. So that's going to be a really fantastic one. And then on Sunday, our friend Jason Brasser-Elong is going to be our facilitator for the Sunday workshop. Jason is a fantastic facilitator of poetry conversations. I can speak from experience. Submissions are due tomorrow, so do not hesitate to turn those in. And then our next observable reading is going to be a fantastic one. That is in November. Steve Schroeder and Eduardo Corral, who recently started at WashU and took the place of Carl Phillips, who recently retired, are going to be our two readers. And that's going to be at the High Low at 7 p.m. on November 18th. So please come check that out. That's going to be a really, really good evening. Housekeeping, if you are here in person at the focal point, out that door, take a left, and then to your right, there are gender-specific and gender-inclusive restrooms on your right. I have not tried this, but my assumption is that you can buy drinks next door. That is a new establishment that I have not tried yet. It's like the third or fourth iteration of a different Mexican joint. I hope they work, because the other ones have not. So please support them. If you're watching this on the internet, you should know that the Wi-Fi is a little glitchy, so we may come in and out, so thanks for your patience, but do comment, do share. We're glad that you're here too. I thought I wasn't going to do this, but I'm feeling a lot of, I don't know about y'all, but autumn makes me feel more feels than I normally do, and I feel a lot of feels. But Erin Quick couldn't be here this evening, but she shouldn't have done this, but as a thank you for flying solo tonight, you saw me already suffer, not starting the live stream on time. She gave me a copy of the Book of More Delights by Ross Gay. Go to your local bookstore and buy one. Who did an event that we collaborated on with, correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, in the last couple days. This is his new-ish book. If you've never read Ross Gay, you're in for a treat. Strongly recommend. But I'm going to start us off by reading a rather fantastic piece called Throwing Children. It is some miracle, some delight when a kid who has a hard time becomes a kid who's having a good time, in no small part thanks to you throwing that kid in the air again and again on a mile-long walk home from the Indian joint. As her mom looks sideways at you like, you don't need to keep doing that. Because you're pouring with sweat and breathing a little bit now. You're getting a good workout. But even though it's sometimes very hard for you to believe, you say, I'm good. Because the kid laughs like a horse up there, laughs like a kangaroo, beating her wings against the light because she laughs like a happy little kid. And when coming down and grabbing your forearm to brace herself for the time when you will drop her, which you don't, and slides her hand into yours as she says for the 40th time, the 50th time, inexhaustible, her delight, again, and again, and you say, give me till the redbud tree, or give me till the persimmon tree, because she knows the trees. And so quiet, you almost can't hear through her giggles, she says, okay, Till the next tree, when she explodes, howling, yanking your arm from the socket. Again, again, all the wolves and mourning doves flying from her tiny throat, and you throw her so high, she lives up there in the tree for a minute. She notices the ants organizing on the bark and a bumblebee carousing the little unripe persimmon in its beret. She laughs and laughs as she hovers up there like a bumblebee, like a hummingbird up there, giggling in the light like a giddy little girl up there the world knows how to love. Pretty nice, right? So with that, Myrtie Reilly co-curates and hosts Reborn, a monthly poetry reading and open mic event, a handle for which is reborn.poetry.stl on all the socials, I'm assuming. By day, she passionately serves as a teacher and child advocate. Myrtie proudly calls St. Louis City home and embraces friendship with all. Please welcome Myrtie to the stage.
My, can you hear me?
Yes. You're a lot taller than I am.
I am quite tall. Is that better? Yeah. Okay, there we go. I need my emotional support, cold water at all times. Thank you, Kenneth, for the introduction. I am currently in my second year as an accidental kindergarten teacher and applying to law school. However, Matthew and I began talking over a year and a half ago now about putting together a reading, an open mic. We met each other 15 years ago at a different open mic that was hosted at Duff's in the Central West End. May it forever live in our memories. So I'm going to read other people's poems. I have one in there, which you'll maybe understand that I'm not quite a polished poet. Let's put it that way. So first off, I'm going to start with 15 Poems is the title. It's by Joseph Soulier. It was published in U City Review. So there'll be 15. I'll read each number, and then after the 15th, we'll be over with this one. But thank you for being here. Thank you, Kenneth. And thank you, St. Louis Poetry Center. Okay. 15 poems. 1. I am the immovable tree, hacked away at helplessly. 2. To accept and thus let go, to settle the debt which you owe. You cannot lose a thing which does not first exist. You cannot reconcile that which is denied, and so I wake until exhaustion for fear of obedience to that which is arbitrary. The moon was full and bright that night, and you, without pretense, offered me a light. 3. Sometimes I think there is no good thing left but love, and it is not enough, and I am captured in the sunlight through the elevator window, subdued in thy grace, and nary adore oh God, I forgot. Sorry, I wrote this word down so I pronounce it correctly, and I still messed it up. Visage, okay. My reflection in your wake. 4, I am thinking big, planning big for the sake of being big, for I am now very small and have always been small. The cat greets me in the yard before the sun comes up, pleased with the dead rabbit below him. Pleased to be big, pleased to be free, pleased to please me. I wonder how that must be. 5, driving past the train, full of grain, in the rain, where the powerful lay claim to your body again. 6, Bono says he has glaucoma, and I think it's bullshit. The butterfly ne'er emerged, and the cat is sitting in my chair. 7, I am playing somber songs among your brushes and your paints, so tender your rebuttals to my stricken and delusional affronts. The doorways always closed just as I arrived, the revelers aghast that I would try. I am weak in my desire for your welcome. 8. How hastily the heart doth wither, 'neath the pity of the horde, the practicing abstainers of remorse in time, the bated breath will run its course. 9. Illustrating a return as your hands in watercolor, as my nude form in the mirror, all of the love our bed has seen, all hidden desires and secret requests, a tender gale befell my heart, as now I wander o'er the glen of every vivid prison in my head. 10. If heaven's where I'm going, I would like to take you with. If hell awaits below, I would like to plead the 5th. 11. In the throes of hallucination, the warmth comes in waves and then is gone. The sun is setting on the windowsill. In pink and orange, the wren chicks flutter around me, not yet understanding the danger, the nightmares, although raised in fiery haze of rueful summers past, we hasten in our curses of the serpent, though it was God who bade him forth to tempt. 12. Yawning at the dated posture of the alpha male, the cycle returns of boy to man to boy to man. At dusk, I was running astride with the dogs. By dawn, I returned to my cage, cowed 'neath the glare of the hunter. 13. Pissing in your garden, I recall, the copper tastes of impact, the blood's ensuing flow, the whiskey-tinted blow. 1,000 bombs are bursting in the street. The sulfur air smells sweet. 14. Inebriated freedom in the night when all is quiet. I am laughing to myself at the warmth of the spirits in my gut. I am crying to myself that every star was never really there for me to see. The rabbit flees from me. The birds emit a warning on my passing as I'm thinking of the bodies in their beds rounding the corner of my block. I think the sun would be embarrassed to greet me. 15. Wrought from the earth as a mountain, ever a churn as the sea, fantastically fleeting as fire, anchored and sure as the tree. Next, Matthew and I have been hosting Reborn. I think next month will be our 16th month, and our good friend Vince Casaragola, I think has read at every single one except for one maybe. So this is from him. Loosely based on community is how I put together this set of poems. So either inspired by like our direct community or like kind of like reaching our fingers out into greater community through coaching. This is published in the online journal, The Right Launch. The title is In the Heat of the Moon, Ferguson, Missouri, August 2014. Late summer days, relentless sun, heating the morning city, turning. Afternoon to a concrete sauna, during the searing days of August, when even at night the asphalt steams, nowhere to hide these days from the scent or sight of ourselves. No one else to blame in the stark light for what we have always known of rage, rippling across red sunburnt skin. It's said that war's first casualty is truth, and even in undeclared wars of color, class, or cold contempt, that scar the city streets with blood, an angry glint of broken glass, a body lying in the hot street, spills itself across our memory, burns its image and even the denying heart, its own truth too raw to name at first, its silent cry lost amid the sirens. We can never know the final thoughts of the young man falling through the heat. to singe his dark skin on hot pavement, feeling bullets carve his body, flashing light and dark across his shattered brain. We can never know what angry hidden will, what frenzied pulse kept the finger, pulling shot after shot from the leaping gun, as if the officer were watching his own hand become an alien being intent to kill. We did not hear the gasping breath or feel the throbbing muscles as the gun relaxed. The air grew screaming silent, could not see with unblinking eyes what hands had wrought in the angry sun. Gasping, too, the man inert on the ground, spreading his dark red shadow behind head and shoulders the last breaths, rattling, then fading, the final twitch as nerves refused to go quietly away. Bodies turn to numbers in the strange calculus of distance and time, but the numbers keep climbing faster, like tallies in some cruel machine that computes the endless cost of hate. It has all happened in the time of the supermoon, that in its perigee came so close it must have pulled our reason into the cloudless dark, leaving the sudden urge to strike. My next one is by Allison Joseph, who's a good poet and friend of Matthew, who read at one of our readings last fall. It's titled Notebooks, and there's a first quote at the beginning, which is, "What are notebooks?" And that's by the Talking Heads in the song Life During Wartime. I crave them as if craving something carnal. Blankness of pages are rotted clean with sensual possibilities and ready to be dampened by my insistent ink, swirls of language made plain on thin blue lines taut as tightrope. I collect them like other women collect shoes or boyfriends, fingering pristine pages while standing hushed in aisles of bookstores and stationery shops, stroking plush-covered ones with a single finger, loving floral print ones more than actual flowers, needing another and another until my house is overrun with them. And they start arranging cocktail hours and support groups for the ones I have not written in, grow lonely, and the ones managing the burden of my desperate handwriting need someone to talk to, peers to confide in about these dog-eared secrets and semi-scribbled imaginings, covert half-truths, outright lies, how they congregate around my bed, waiting for me to pick what up, start another hazy page of scrawls and arrows. Cross-outs and restarts, confessions that will never be confessions until I judge them fit for judgment. Sometimes when fate has flattened me with its one hard fist, only the black and white composition notebooks of childhood will do. Marbled covers unchanged from when I first learned cursive. One letter reaching for the next. In the crazy tilting of my untested hand, only those wide-ruled lines will do. Those patient belongings. Catherine Rickovic read last week at our, thank you for coming, at our reading, and I was really inspired by her work. I searched and I found one online published in the U City Review, so I'm going to read that as part of our poetry community. It's titled Self-Portrait with Return Address Labels. Self-portrait with return address labels. Whose world is this of beehives and butterflies, tulips and zinnias, kites and starfish, lighthouses, a rainbow sky, through a cloud beach scenes, bald eagle heads? Whose world is this of silver stars on a blue field, tiny trees with pink apples, or Mount Rushmore with the U.S. flag for a sky? It's mine, every adhesive label. The size of the smallest Band-Aid gives 3 lines to my name and address alongside a portal 1/2 inch square, into a world of overwhelming cheerfulness, colorful, consistent, no skulls and crossbones, no faces of eels, no burnt pans or overfilled sinks, sunburn or oil spills, and their ribbon bits, yellow or pink, are proxies for cheer, regarding military actions and mammograms. An inevitable August they arrive, sent in an envelope too thick to tear. The horn of plenty repeated 200 times in November, the boxed holiday gifts and the snowflakes of 4 designs and snowmen wearing stocking caps. In this world, rough neighborhoods and hidden meanings do not exist. World without failure or death. Managed by angels, not one demon or misprint. And 40 sheets of address labels. But they sent me to those fantasy geese in their poke bonnets, ribbons knotted on their necks, whom only I, the born killjoy, see as the cultural symbol of overconsumption and overfeeding. I stick those on the bills I don't like paying. They are the useful gifts of the disabled and paralyzed American veterans, whose only marketable possession is my name, 200 repetitions of it, mediated by an inkjet, tempt me to give to their campaign, that and their kind and modest letter, not about my, but their contribution, in a prepaid envelope, wasted if I don't reply. I can't throw it away without a little crisis. Okay, hold on. Okay, now comes in. This is one that I wrote. Woo! Do cicadas supper? A teenage boy hollered in my general direction on my late stagger home. Hey man, can I hit that? As I took a drag from my citrus sunrise Lost Mary, I waved him off and he tried to talk me into it. A drag. I passed by a cicada with mutilated wings, buzzing and flopping off the floor, grinding the stubs of its wings further into the textured cement. Was I supposed to kill it? Does it know the end is near? Okay. This one is an Instagram poet that I really like. I don't know her Instagram name offhand, but her name is Lindsay Rush, and she just put out a book called A Bit Much, which I can relate to in some ways. It's called I'll Hold It For You. The worry you store neatly in your ribs, the breath you haven't let out since 2020, the world that's perched on your shoulders, the love that might tear you in two. I know you're the type of person who hates talking more than on trip to hates taking more than on trip. One trip. That's my problem, sorry. Okay, we're gonna read that one. Hates taking more than one trip to bring in the groceries, but that looks heavy. Give it to me for a minute, I'll hold it for you. Nice. This is supposed to be an uplifting moment, but here's my last one, and this is written by my co-curator. The last one that I just flubbed, but that's okay. Talked about 2020 and like letting out this breath. And Matthew and I, when we were curating Reborn, our poetry reading open mic, we talked about how we connected, but also like coming back together as a community after COVID. So this is by Matthew Scott Freeman. It's a new one called Reborn. If you think that because I co-curate a fabulous reading series and I appear to be so high functioning that I'll stop writing paranoid and desperate poems, well, think again. And if you think that now, my dear sisters, a fabulous teacher down south, I'll stop poking the lion in the cage of Academe. You'd be dead. Wrong. I was all mixed up and I was dazed. I dropped my phone and it shattered on the floor. ruined as I rooted around in the cluttered dark closet in the back, frantically trying to find a mic stand while the angry professor stood behind me, making demands. So I said, "Fuck it," and grabbed my Diet Coke and came out onto Cherokee and had a smoke. And there I felt the spirit upon me. Oh, so I'm still fighting demons. Thank God. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're making me remember our first in-person reading we had after I started this gig in January of 21, so almost 4 years ago, which is wild. But our first in-person reading, like around this time 3 years ago, like we were doing shots like on the stage. I mean, it was a big deal. So yeah, thank you for reminding me of that joyful time. I have to say before I introduce Matthew that which I'm frustrated I didn't say this before. So Miss Reilly, as she is known in our household, was my child's co-teacher last year, and on his bag he keeps a very carefully curated set of flair. I don't know what else to call it. There's a lot of it. And there's a keychain on one side has like the crest of the school, and on the other side is a picture of him and Miss Reilly on his backpack. So very, very important role Miss Reilly plays in our community. So it needed to be said. But I guess I'll introduce Matthew Freeman now. The author of 7 books of poems. Most recently, I Think I'd Rather Roar. He holds an MFA from the University of Missouri St. Louis and is one of the co-curators and hosts of the aforementioned Reborn, which we'll talk about more later. Please, Matthew, take the stage.
Hello, everybody, friends. You know, it seems like we used to do this all the time. Not so much anymore. It's sad. Thank you, Kenneth and Aaron, who's named Cynthia. And Jet and Kenneth are going to be the November readers at Reborn, which is the 3rd Tuesday. Do we know what date that is? 19th. Okay. Good. So yeah, like 20 years ago, literally around this time, 20 years ago, I didn't have a lot going on. And I was writing poems and stuff, you know, in my room, sad and all that. And I thought, I gotta do something. So I Googled St. Louis poetry, and up came the St. Louis Poetry Center. And I met all of you and got involved and started getting serious about poetry, I guess, more serious. And Eamon Wall was a friend in UMSL who said, it's a real Irish thing to never let anybody feel good about themselves. And what happened was, a couple of years later, I got a book published in real, like a self-promoting deal, like I used to do. I called it the Dogtown Poet, so that's from Dogtown. And so people started calling me the Dogtown Poet. So. Except my buddy Mike Nolan said, no, the dog shit poet. That's my funny intro. So this one, yeah, I said I was going to read all new poems. I think I got 8 or 9. And this one I wrote yesterday. I just posted a picture of it. I learned how to do that. Like, you take a picture and then you share it with yourself, and you put it on the desktop, and then you do some other stuff. This is called All the Major Themes in One Poem. This is the story of how I avoided becoming a full beatnik. If you've ever used a jacket as a blanket or a pillowcase as a napkin, and if you couldn't afford a Diet Coke at your own reading, then you'll know what I'm all about. But I believe in the sublime, the oddest moments. You think someone with high abstract ideals could never live like that. Stop right there. For it was Hal that set me running all the way up to last week when I said, from now on, I'm going to be the cool guy. I had to categorize my body language and resolve that no matter how much chaos I had to endure, I was going to keep it cool. But then this new Vraylar kicked in, and I started tapping my toe in the manner of someone living and hearing a soft inland murmur. That was on the Metrolink. I needed the ocean. I breathed deeply and departed, and when I saw a woman lighting a cigarette outside the expensive apartments on Del Mar, I waved so casually I wouldn't have disturbed a bird, and she gave me a hip nod. There's a way to keep language close and not be disturbed. I've found it. Allow me now to continue on with hyperbole. Okay. And I guess the rest of these will be hyperbolic. Thinking about Julia Kristeva. A poem's just your brains are raining. The primary process is such a storm, at least for me. And I'm connected, I really am. It's only we're in the middle of the necromedia. Beatnik Bob got mad because he felt I didn't appreciate the moon enough as I walked to Starbucks. So I indicated the beautiful big orange parking sign behind Fitz's. No, I can't signify my body, as it's been negated by Closero. I've tried a smaller dosage, but the day after that is a wild and disorganized catastrophe. And no, Bob, I don't have a real job. Maybe if I did, I'd have more of a body. I thought about getting a tattoo. I think I'd get the Superman symbol. I grew up mesmerized by those movies. Here's a question. What structures society more? Your fucked up family or McDonald's? You can't get a proscription at Walgreens. My brain's been scarred and scared. No matter how free I get, they're still lurking in the background. All I know how to do is push them aside and continue the awful moment. Hey, maybe instead of saying I'm freaking out and dying, you could say, we drove by the vacant lot where once stood the old house in Dogtown and it was pretty sad. Or you could say they're getting ready to tear down your bread co across from Starbucks and this tells you something about the way things are. Hell, maybe you said enough. People will probably get it. And anyway, everybody deep down knows who they are and what's what. In which case, why not have some fun? My favorite tavern burned down, all because I got dry. I can't read that. Desperate Clan. I've been doing something as of late that is completely unbalanced. Every afternoon, I get another coffee at Starbucks and take my Judith Butler and my blank 3x5 and pen around the corner to my little spot next to the apartments where all the students live, and I do a bit of reading and writing. But for the last week or so, there's been a construction crew there, hammering and sawing and fitting, so I've had to move my body and my various possessions accordingly. Today they came right out and asked me to displace. I don't really know why I've kept coming back. Perhaps I'm saying to you, to them, to the world, this here's work as well. Yeah, I started this Vraylar like 2 weeks ago. It's really working. Out back behind, this is called after being prescribed Vraylar. Out back behind Parkview Place, a squirrel is doing its thing. Presumably it doesn't ask why. And when a student passes by on their bike, I don't ask why either. I think I'm ready to grieve now. I think I'm ready to grieve the loss of a hell I'll probably never fully understand. I do promise you, however, that I will certainly try. This is called revisioning. I just passed a holy man who had apparently come from a faraway land to Delmar, and he was wearing a long tan linen robe, and when he got close to me, he gave me a very casual two-finger salute, as if to say, "We're in this crazy world together, my friend, and game always respects game." My sad thing is that I'm prone to not put what I consider disorder into the universe, as I come from sheer shrieking chaos. I was telling Diana on the elevator how I bought a black shoelace to replace the torn leather string on my tobacco pouch. But when I got to my room, I found the lace was actually brown. So now I'm looking all over for Diana to tell her the truth. I wouldn't tell anyone else how to love. All right, this is it. This is the last one. It's called Belly. Hope you liked them. Thank you so much for being here, as always. I was sitting outside Starbucks in the dark morning, rolling cigarettes, when my neighbor Bob came over and gave me a huge cup of ice water I couldn't pass. To defend myself against such demonics, I had to say, yes, I read online that my frequent stomach aches could be the result of dehydration. So I got that in it. I made things right. But later in the day, I'm so dumb, I started thinking on how that might have been a great big blessing, and why you shouldn't always assume disaster. But I guess that's my own private dialectic, from discord to harmony, from tatters and fragments unto representation. For so long, I did so many things I didn't want to do. How to measure a human being? You ask yourself, if you've gone up against the void, against nothingness, and ripped out something beautiful from the guts of chaos.
Yes, you are seating yourself. And Myrtie hopefully is making her way up here as well, as I awkwardly get things together. Anybody got a good joke? Anybody got a bad joke?
I got a joke that my kids were taught for Halloween.
Go for it.
How do you tell a snowman from a snow woman?
Oh boy, how do you tell a snowman from a
So this by
snowman?
a 5-year-old.
Here we go.
I heard it. You check for snowballs.
Check for snowballs. Oh, the gender binary. It's so funny.
It was more shocking than the answer when it came out. It was like, which parent won that one?
Nice. So we are going to chat for a second. We have a little time. And as we begin doing that, I invite you to think of things you would like to chat with that have popped into your brain. So feel free to interrupt or raise your hand or just shout it out. But I'm going to kick it off with these lovely folks by saying thanks for being here. I would love to, again, hear a bit about the origin story of Reborn. Kind of how did that coalesce in the first place? Because it's still pretty new. You said 16th month or 17th month. So let's start there.
Well, I go to analysis down on South Grand, actually at the Dickman building, and Freud would love it. But I take the bus there, and I can either get there right on time or an hour and a half early. And I go and get there an hour and a half early, and I bring a novel and read at Mokabee's. And one day I'm walking up and I see Myrtie, and I'm like, we know each other. I know her. I hadn't probably seen her in 10 or 15 years. But I didn't say anything because I didn't want to make an ass out of myself. And so Myrtie introduced, I'm like, oh yes, Myrtie. And we started talking and hanging out. And that was the summer of 23, right? July of 23. And then one day, like a month or two later, she's just like, hey, you want to start a reading series? And I was like, all right. But the thing I remember most about Myrtie was we were sitting at the bar at Dove's, and there were all these bar coasters, or I don't know what you call them, flat, to put under the coasters. And they were all messed up. And I took these coasters and I made them really nice and neat, like you might imagine I would do. And Myrtie comes over and goes, so that was my favorite memory of Myrtie. She was so young then, though. You were like 18 years old hanging out at Dove's. Were you 18, 19? Yeah, and probably doing shots, maybe. And all right, but anyhow, Myrtie got the venue. We almost did it at Dressel's, and then there've been maybe like 3 times where we almost left Fortune Teller, but we always have hung with them. They've been good to us, so it's been fun, and the Cherokee area is really cool. So
I just,
we always have a fight over the mic at the end of Reborn.
there's a little one. I know there's a lot of readings going on right now and open mics. I hadn't been aware of a lot of them, and I've been really craving since I moved back to St. Louis in 2021. This community, especially with like art and poetry. I talked about briefly the idea with a few other people that used to go to that Duff's reading. But when Matthew and I kept running into each other, it just kind of like it fit. I was like 19, 18. I worked at Duff's. I did not drink there. But I did love it. I loved the scene. I loved being at the bar on a day when they weren't open. I loved like people came from all over the city to read, to listen to each other. And I think that's what we've tried to create at Fortune Teller. This community that we were missing.
So you mentioned a few. Can you help me? Like, what readings also exist out there that we need to know about? Like, so we do this one. We also do Observable, and those are the 2 ones that we maintain. What others are there out there that we need to?
There's one at the Heavy Anchor, right?
Heavy Anchor does one. Dunaway does one. Spine does like a few every month. We kind of try to combine. We have 1 or 2 curated readers, and then we have 10 spots for open mic.
Well, we've done like 12 or 13 people, really. Yeah, the Dunaway thing, they have a lot of different events. I wonder if you Google Dunaway books, something might come up. Dan writes down there. But, I mean, before COVID, back in the day, or maybe 15 years ago, it seemed like we were going somewhere like at least once a week, you know, and maybe somebody much younger than us is going somewhere every week. I don't know. Oh, there's stuff at CBGB's too.
Yep.
Street poetry.
There's something called like Lyric as well. There's a Fairfax, I think, that does on Fridays.
And there's some other spoken word ones that I know happen, like aren't in this city. I try to post about readings on our Instagram as much as possible.
I wanted to emphasize how the diverse quality of our open mic, because we've had a lot of people that read there for the first time they ever read anywhere. And then we've had people, distinguished professors read there. And so it's been really interesting, you know, and we really do love it when someone is reading for their first time, and then we love it if they come back, but they don't always come back.
Yeah, we've had the pleasure of having that be the case here too, and I think it's a real strength to have the same spotlight and the same mic on those folks in equal measure is a real thing. I'm curious. So in any artistic collaboration, there's always kind of there's a give and take of how do you guys decide? Because I could tell you if you asked me who does what. Do you talk about like who does what in terms of putting the evening together, speaking at the event itself? Like, is there any sort of forethought that's going on, and or is it just more like are you riffing?
You go.
Matthew books our featured readers. However,
A lot of times I ask you.
there is input by me. I definitely wanted to make sure that we are being inclusive and diverse with our featured readers to make sure that we're giving a platform for all kinds of people. So we've tried to get some young readers in and definitely keep it interesting every month. You can elaborate.
Well, the structure of it, well, we've had all kinds of different, but Myrtie gets up there, and then I get up there and introduce people, and then she does the open mic, and then I come up at the end. We just did that the first time and kept doing it over and over, and it just seemed natural. But at the end, it is true, I'm always trying to grab the mic. She's like, one more thing. I'm trying to grab the mic. Well, I know a lot of different poets, and I've met a lot of different poets, and we've met people there too. And I've just tried to be creative, and it's, I mean, I wouldn't say that, if you paid me some money, but I'm joking.
But we've had like some months we have one reader, some months we have two. Last November we had there was a Liminal Women anthology put out, so we had about 6 readers from them come out. I think if somebody has something to promote, we would take that in interest, and then also just keep trying to like mix it up so we can bring in different
There are
crowds.
so many poets. Allison Joseph was from Carbondale. She drove up.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because it is no small feat to keep anything like that going for a year, almost a year and a half in 2024. And so the ins and outs like that really matter, right? So I'm genuinely curious about those details. I want to come back to you because 7 books total, something like that. That's a lot of books. And I'm curious just about the last reading we did was, the last couple of readings I've been very curious with folks about how they go from just a collection of poems that kind of exist in this just cloud of things that you've created into something cohesive. So if you have any thoughts about that, I'm very curious as to just your process of these poems are finished and they kind of belong together. And then there's this sometimes what feels like too much magic to decipher, and then they're kind of a book. So if you could help us decipher the magic, I'm curious about that.
Well, that's interesting. Because there was a discussion on Twitter about this, about how a lot of times, I don't think it's happening as much now, but for like 10 or 15 years there, it seemed like everybody had a sort of like a theme. Like all these poems are about, the chapel. Or all these poems are about clouds. Whatever, and then somebody was like, whatever happened to just these are the best poems I've written in the last few years. So that's kind of how I did, which I thought, oh, these poems are pretty good, you know. And if there's something jarring that's still good and it's jarring, you maybe not put it in. But, you know, but now the stuff I'm working on right now, I've gone beyond being able to remember what's at the beginning of it, but I do want to put like some kind of a narrative, and so that it's going to be big and you can maybe read it like a novel, because my stuff's easy to read. It's not difficult to read. You could read real quickly. But yeah, I don't know if that happens so much anymore, but for a while it seemed like everybody had a theme. And now it's gone back to just, oh, these are my best poems. Because that's what you would get if you bought a book of poems by somebody from 100 years ago. You'd probably just get, selected poems or collected poems. Stop talking.
No, that's real. I think I'm in the same boat, and it's making like convincing anybody to take it really hard. But we won't get into my publishing woes. I want to ask you one more question, then I want to start to close this up. So is poetry becoming more of a creative outlet for you? Is this kind of world your main creative output? Do you have other ways that you are a creative person to get away from 8 million little ones running around your feet all day?
Yeah, I think like how we started it, I was craving maybe not necessarily an outlet for myself, but maybe a scheduled artistic endeavor. So every month, even if I have 100 things going on, or I'm applying to law school right now, so last year I was studying for the LSAT, I still had the one night a month, and then the hours I put in, like working to organizing it and posting about it as my break. So I have it scheduled now. I think that it's probably my main what somebody would typically think about creative outlet. It's also kind of hard. You know, I have 21 kids right now in my class, and so I have 6.5 hours a day of consistently being creative, answering 1,000 questions. But I think making the effort every month to like, I'm going to do at least this one artistic endeavor has really helped me maintain it. And I think collaborating has been beneficial for both of us. I do some of the organizing, but Matthew is the poet, and so
We were lost last time. Vince and I wrote a parody of it, but Vince and we were trying to find the mic stand, and I brought this mic stand out, and we're trying to put the mic on top of it, and it's just not. And the bartender came, and they were like, "That's not a mic stand. That's something for film or something to put a camera on." And then it was like we were shining the light on the floor because I was like, we need an adapter. And they were like, there was an adapter there. It probably fell off. Oh, so we found the adapter.
And I think not just for us every month, but the community that we've built, we have people that have come every single time. And that also like keeps it going for sure. It's not just for us to get in front of people and talk. It's definitely for the community, and everyone looks forward to it every month. So that, you know, if people are looking forward to something that you're helping put together, it definitely keeps that motivation going.
All right, the usual last question. We're going to gather some paradise. So I'm curious from these two folks, a new book that is striking your fancy, a new poet you discovered, a poem that came across your feed the other day, a show that's blowing your mind, a podcast that's really tickling your fancy, something artistic or creative that you think other people should know about. So I'll give you a second to kind of marinate on that while I say, if I haven't said recently, Argentine, she's from Buenos Aires, writer named Mariana Enriquez writes these just mind-blowingly delicious spooky stories. And I don't really read spooky stories. Her new collection of stories is called A Sunny Place for Shady People, which is a brilliant title, by the way. I'm just not going to say more than that. She is like a literary writer, but just incredibly accessible. Really recommend her. I think I might have one of the only 2 copies in the system, so I'll be done soon.
Okay, I read a poem by Lindsay Rush. Her Instagram is Mary Oliver's Drunk Cousin. And her new book is called A Bit Much. I'm pretty sure she's from St. Louis area, but she writes about being a woman right now, and maybe it's not a bit too much, but maybe it's a bit too much for some to handle.
I was gonna say a little something about Mary Oliver, because I have a stack of books, and I've been reading the Carl Phillips that won the Pulitzer Prize like a couple of years ago. Yeah, but that's an investment. It's good. And then I was reading The Prelude by William Wordsworth, which is an amazing poem that I keep coming back to. But the thing about, I think Mary Oliver gets a bad rap, like she's a lightweight or something, or she's, whatever. But I think that the book I have, at least, is really impressive. If you see, I take a book to Starbucks every morning and I read, but we're all talking and there's music. But if I go somewhere alone and I bring a book of poetry, and if I bring the Mary Oliver and I go somewhere where it's quiet and read it, I'm like, wow, that's really great. So.
I love it. Thanks for those recommendations. Let's start closing our evening by appreciating these poets, please. Just a heads up, so we'll be taking a break for the rest of the year. Our first reading of 2025, Where's My Flying Cars, will be January 28th. We're going to feature Jen Whalen. Still looking for somebody to pair with Jen, but that's going to be a great reading. If you are watching this online in the future, you'll still be able to view tonight's reading on Facebook and YouTube. And on the St. Louis Poetry Center's website after October 22nd. So keep sharing, keep commenting, keep asking us questions, keep boosting these folks' fantastic work and reading series. Thank you to you guys. Glad you came. Thank you to Erin for setting all this up. Hope she had a fantastic date night tonight. She deserves all the time off she can get. Thank you to you for coming out to a poetry reading in person in 2024. I never take that for granted. Be safe going home. Take care of each other. Good night. Yes. Oh, Reborn, November 19th.
Yep.
Jet
knows.
Me, poetry. Be there. Fortune Teller Bar, Cherokee Street.
Yeah, I'm working back.
Hey.